Our keynote speaker, Matt Collins, VP Marketing, Collaboration Solutions, and Social Business at IBM, will be giving a speech whose title actually wasn't determined probably until about last evening. We were talking at the speaker's dinner at the hotel over there, and he actually went back to his hotel room and wrote a new speech, or at least he rearranged some of his slides. Anyway, he was up burning a late oil lamp. And the title he finally arrived on, which I just heard about 5 minutes ago too, is Global Businesses Are Working to Engage the Empowered Customer by Interrupting him with music. Could you get the music out, please? Thank you. Global businesses are working to engage the empowered customer by delivering exceptional experience. Please welcome Matt Collins of IBM.
Thank you so much. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I enjoy speaking on this topic and to an audience like this, because as a Vice President of Marketing at IBM in the social business and collaboration space, I have the pleasure of both working with my team to transform what we do, leveraging new approaches and technologies in this space, while at the same time trying to help educate and convince clients and prospects that they can get real business value out of social technologies, particularly social business technologies, as well as new deployment models across mobile devices and technologies that help them get value out of big data. And so we at IBM, about 2 years ago, started talking very openly about a concept called social business. And what I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about our point of view of what we think that's happening and how value is being created, but focus a lot about stories of clients who we worked with, because as is usually the case, what we think, what we believe, what we understand, we learned that by working with clients who are real leaders in this space, taking risks, taking new approaches, and we think getting real business value. So the chart that's up here is an interesting one. You may notice the little e-business logo. Lou Gerstner, who was our CEO, he got up on a stage over 10, 12 years ago, not too dissimilar for this one, and announced a concept called e-business. And what he and IBM at that time were asserting was that the predominant use of the internet up until that time was casual use of the internet to surf, to browse, and we believed that actually the internet was at an inflection point. And the inflection point was that people were moving from activities like browsing to buying and from surfing to selling. That the future was going to be that the internet was going to be woven throughout business and business process in such a way that at some point no one's going to talk about e-business. And I think that's largely what's happened. We believe at IBM, based on our work with clients, social is going through a very, very similar transformation. So this is a picture of a social graph, nice illustration. The names, if you can read them, are largely a lot of the very well-known social media vendors and venues, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. The social graphs that exist today, tremendously powerful communication vehicles, collaboration vehicles. You all know the statistics. They go up every day in terms of the number of users, the amount of content that's shared. The real value, obviously, as many of you probably know, is that you can actually look at and understand the connections and the relationships between the individuals within a social graph, what they share, what they talk about, what they think, what their sentiment is. And we believe at IBM, and I think a lot of our clients believe, that what's happening is the social graph is becoming a central tool in how business processes are run. So 3 things that we think really drive this and what we've observed. The first one is there's tremendous pressure in the marketplace today for companies and organizations to be more productive. If you look at the economy over the last 5 or 6 years, it's irrefutable that productivity is perhaps the greatest challenge facing just about every organization in the world. Without growth, you need to find ways to become more productive. And really, if you're going to compete, you have to find a way to tap into your collective intelligence. The second trend is really about the empowered consumer. No doubt, more vocal, more intelligent, more informed. They have the ability to make or break you in the marketplace. And then on top of that, you layer in the trend that whether it's an employee or a customer, the desire to be connected 24/7 via mobile devices. These are 3 indisputable trends that businesses will need to grapple with if they want to succeed and compete and win in their marketplaces. So what do we mean when we talk about integrating social into a business process? So this isn't just about using social networking technology to share information and collaborate, but actually using the technology to really run a core business process like customer service, HR, IT, marketing. And I'm going to share with you, some of the benefits and some of the successes that we've seen. But it really breaks down into 2 important and very highly connected phenomenon. The first is the challenge for a business is they need to actually find out how they can interact with their customers in new ways and deliver exceptional experiences, while at the same time leveraging social technology to build a smarter workforce. That's the way we are seeing clients using this technology. And I think the important point in context is this isn't one or the other. It's both. And it's not about one set of tools to interact with customers and a different set of tools to arm your workforce. Increasingly, these 2 things are coming together where arming employees with new technologies, social and mobile, is helping them actually serve customers more effectively. So it's thinking about social as more than just a cool marketing channel. I've got a great Facebook page, people come. It's really about the full customer experience and how you arm your employees to help them find experts, find information, collaborate, and then operate in a way that's very consistent with your strategy and brand as they interact with your customers. So when we talk about social from a business point of view, one of the first questions is, okay, it's interesting, you're talking about integrating this into a business process, but what's the ROI? And the statistics that you see on this chart are real experiences that we've seen clients actually generate real ROI by integrating social into their business process. So Cemex is a great example. You see the 1/3 the time, global company, 50 countries. They actually were able to reduce the time of thinking through, developing, and deploying a new global branded product 1/3 the time they got that out the door. Now, how do companies that we've worked with actually achieve business value? I think the first thing is they're very good at thinking through what's the process that I want to enable? What are the critical business processes? And then they sit and they think through how do you actually document benefit in this business process? And then they think through deploying social technologies at scale and the cultural transformation that they need to go through to get people to actually operate in a new way and use new technologies. The ROI of social for many of our clients is real, and for those who think through it that way, it's not about taking a small team, giving them some tools, hoping that if you build it, they will come. And the last thing is making sure that as they build out their social strategy, they think through how am I actually going to deploy this in such a way that people can access this wherever they are, however they want to access it on whatever device. So we believe the benefits of social are real. There have been a lot of studies that document this, a great McKinsey study that just came out recently. But at the end of the day, companies who think through these challenges get the real value and think about it as a part of their business process, not just a collaboration tool. So one client that I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about is the Chilean Red Cross. They're a disaster response organization. They deployed social technology from IBM, collaboration tools, across the entire way that they do disaster response. And they've seen dramatic responses in the efficiency of their response to new disasters. So you might say, well, that's interesting. They're a disaster response organization. They're using social tools. They're getting real benefits. A recent Gartner study that was just published, they actually went and talked to organizations about how they're going to handle disaster response. I just came from the New York area. For those of you who know, we went through a huge weather-related disaster. Very challenging for a lot of companies to coordinate and understand what's happening across their different locations, their people, who's safe, who's not. 75% of companies that Gartner surveyed said that they want to start to use and plan to, in the next 3 to 5 years, social technologies to manage disaster response. This is the way that companies are starting to think through, how do I use this not just as a collaboration tool, but as a way to build a smarter workforce and integrate it into important business processes. Another client that I want to talk about is Children's Medical Center of Dallas, one of the largest pediatric hospitals in North America. This was an organization that wanted to develop a completely new relationship with their clients, children, particularly children with cancer. They actually set up a private social network capability completely integrated into their digital experience in their web portal, which enabled a patient, so think of an 8, 9, 10-year-old child, to set up a private social network where they could invite nurses, doctors, family members, other patients to come and collaborate with them, answer questions, share information. I don't know how many people here want to put their private patient medical records on their Facebook page. Probably not too many. But by thinking through this as a social business, thinking through how do I integrate this into my website, my full customer experience, how do I do it in a way that's secure, how do I do it in a way that we can control what information is shared, who gets into the network, they've actually been able to completely transform the relationship that they have with their patients. This is not something that they do voluntarily. It's not something where you just spin up a quick page. It's a very thoughtful process on how we actually enable the business process to transform by integrating social into how they deliver patient care. You can see some of the business results, higher referral rates, lower calls to clinics. It's really something that's transforming the way that they deliver care. So I think clearly these are great examples of how social can be applied to a business process. But I think it's important, if you look at the last example, to recognize that as you interact with clients, many are going to want to interact with you in ways that you didn't anticipate, whether you deploy something on a website for someone to use on a desktop, a tablet, or a mobile device. Technology exists today out of the box, IBM, our exceptional web experience capabilities, to allow you to deliver an absolutely consistent experience across any device. And I think that's an important thing to think about as you think about your brand and how people experience you. You want them to experience your brand and interact with you in a consistent way, no matter how they're coming forward. And again, our experience with clients is many are surprised by how people want to interact with them. But I think the more important message here is that forward-thinking leaders are actually finding ways to leverage mobile technology to completely transform their business model. It's not just about delivering a website. That's a great thing to do. It's not about giving a good experience on a tablet or on a mobile device. Birmingham Metropolitan College, a client of ours, they actually thought through their entire model of how they deliver education. They took their content. They brought their professors into a social network, cloud-based, and enabled students to access professors, social interactions, and course content through their mobile devices. They saw a reduction in dropout rates. They saw entirely new groups of students who would have never thought to actually attend the university, now considering that as an option. And then they saw other benefits. Cloud-based model, access through mobile devices. Suddenly they're getting recognized as a green university, which obviously in their space is an important part of their brand. This is something that is actually helping them significantly transform the way they run their business. The heart of it is the mobility that they enable, tying it back not just to the delivery of an app, but to a delivery of the entire experience for their students. I think the other important factor to consider as you think about social experiences and deploying mobile capabilities is all the analytics capabilities that exist today. Many of you have seen charts like the ones on these slides. They measure sentiment, the topics, and forward-thinking clients that we're working with are thinking through not only how do I use analytics capabilities on my website, through my social network, to identify new influencers and find information and understand sentiment and topics, but they're actually thinking through how do I tie this out into my entire interaction process. I mean, let's face it, social networks are essentially massive generators of big data. We all know that. IBM, we talk a lot about streaming data for sensors from smart grids, et cetera. But this information is gold, not because you can understand it, but because you can use it to change the way you interact with clients. I want to talk quickly about a company, Amadori. Amadori is a 100-year-old food services company, poultry products in Italy. You wouldn't think they'd be the poster child for a big data company, right? You might think of a big grid company or a company that's, business is, cutting edge in the social space. What Amadori wanted to do is, move from being sort of a staid older company to developing a relationship with an entirely new, younger demographic. So they started to use analytics capabilities from IBM to study how they're interacting with and what people are saying in the social media space, revamp their social channels, Facebook, YouTube, etc., link those channels into their web presence, where you can then start to do things like commerce, and then use web content management capabilities to rapidly spin up microsites that speak directly to what they are hearing by studying and learning about this new target audience. And the response has been just tremendous in terms of the growth of the amount of interactions and, quite frankly, business that they're getting from a much younger consumer. So again, this is a company who's thinking through not only how do they do social analytics, but how do they tie that back into the entire customer experience process and arm themselves with the ability for someone in a line of business role to quickly spin up an entirely new experience without having to call IT that speaks directly to the audience they're trying to target, and do it in a way that their social and their web channels are completely connected and delivering the same experience. So again, it starts with the big data and the analytics, but they created a virtuous circle here between what's happening in social, what they want to deliver on their web, and how they use analytics to continually assess what's happening from the big data that's generated through the social networks that they manage and other social networks in their space. So part of what I've been trying to argue here is that we've got a lot of really good examples of leaders who are starting to think much more aggressively about the use of social technologies in a business context. We just studied, our Institute for Business Value just published a study on social business. And again, one of the key things that this study validated is that companies are really starting to understand that the use of social technologies from a social business platform point of view is not just limited to internal use, and it's not just about actually engaging with clients through a Facebook page or something like that to market to them. They're starting to understand that they have to think through how they use technology. Again, this was more than 1,000 companies, to actually touch clients and employees and engage with them with entirely new ways. So the question to ask, whatever industry you're in, is if leaders are already getting real business value by becoming a social business and by serving clients in new ways, by studying big data to be more intelligent around how they run their interaction processes, are we taking the steps to think about social in this kind of a comprehensive way? So I'm going to close by, pointing out something that may seem obvious, but is an important point to make. Companies who are looking to move in this direction often need a partner. We think at IBM we can help any company in any industry. The first thing is, we are serving more than 60% of the Fortune 100 companies in social business and delivering real business benefit working with clients. You saw some examples here. I think the other thing is, we've got the market-leading social platform, a lot of experience. If you look at the IDC data, our social platform connections is more than twice the size of our leading competitor. And I make this point only because there's a lot of hot companies in this space, but we think we are a consideration for any of you here and would love to think through how we can help you get on the path that some of our best customers were on. And the final point is we've got a deep and dynamic ecosystem of partners who are bringing great capabilities like compliance capabilities, like gamification, to help clients who are in the enterprise space think about how they adopt social technologies, deploy them through mobile interactions in a multi-channel way, and then leverage big data to actually make that whole process work in a much more intelligent way. So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much. Matt, why don't you join me here on the sofa? We have a couple of minutes left to ask questions. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you have this wonderful gadget here on the table. If you want to ask questions, you have to collaborate, because we only have one machine per table. But we also, of course, have our wonderful colleague here, Loic, who is equipped with old technology, a real microphone. So just wave to him. Don't wave to me, because I don't see you anyway. I can see dim outlines because I have the lights in my face. Matt, social business is the latest buzzword from IBM. Back when you introduced e-business, you actually went and patented the E. Remember this little red E?
Yep.
Are you going to patent a red S now?
No. Well, so this is something we've talked a lot about. But actually, we believe that social business is not a technology. We think it's about actually a phenomenon and a way of operating as a company. And so our point of view is we want to help educate the market and clients about the benefits of social business. And then since we've got a lot of great capabilities and great partners, quite frankly, we'll get our share of folks who are coming to us for asking for help. So we believe, since it's not a technology, it's more of a phenomenon, and it's a way of clients getting business value. It doesn't make sense for any particular company, including IBM, to own it as a term.
Becoming social aware, I think would probably be the right term, is one thing. The other is being social ready, as in e-business ready, which used to be even an index, I remember. What does it take for a company to become social ready? I mean, it would seem to me that this is not just a thing of having to convince people in the company that this is actually a good idea. You actually have to have the organization the processes in place. You need the tools. And don't you actually, of course, need the mindset?
Yes, I think for most of the companies that we've worked with, when we've seen success, they haven't taken the approach of, let's sprinkle some dust and hope that this takes hold and takes off like wildfire. It happens in some cases. Social ready, to use your term, that comes with, the first is a clear strategy and alignment on, as I'd mentioned, what are the business processes that can really benefit through the use of social? I think the second thing is a very, very clear understanding of the cultural issues. Many companies, there's not a culture of open collaboration, of complete transparency, and that's something that companies underestimate at their own risk. And so, one of the key success factors is a clear understanding of what your company culture is, what their readiness is to adopt these new ways of interacting and sharing information. And I'll just give you just one quick example. I'll use an IBM example. We've got about 400,000 employees who use an enterprise social platform based on Connections, our product. On day one, our new CEO posted a video blog instead of sending an email like our prior CEO would have done. And within 2 days, there were close to 300,000 people who had viewed the video. I had an employee on my team who posted a question for the CEO, and she responded and said, "I'd love to see that." Now, the first reaction I had was, my heartbeat racing because I hadn't even seen it. That is a very different mode of interaction where someone, 4 or 5 levels below a CEO is suddenly interacting with them directly through a social network. And you have to really come to terms with, are you ready to either transform your culture to be more open and to use these technologies, or is that something that you need to address before you try to deploy this and get value out of it? So I think, it boils down to, do you understand the process? Do you understand how you'd get benefit out of it? Do you have alignment across the organization to drive the transformation? And are you ready to address the cultural issues that come up with an entirely new way of interacting and working across your organization?
Maybe a last question of mine. I was intrigued by a term that you used. You talked about the smart workforce.
Yes.
I mean, lots of companies have a CRM system. And theoretically, they know lots about their customers. But of course, who knows this? It's the marketing boss, the guy that actually sees the cockpit or the report card or whatever.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is a kind of a trickle-down effect, isn't it? Where everybody in the company shares this knowledge about the customer and can react on that. It seems to be a big challenge for companies to reorganize themselves on those lines.
Yeah. Well, I think, to your point about CRM systems and the data and the information versus what we would call systems of engagement, right? I think the next movement in terms of driving productivity and improving the effectiveness of your workforce is using systems of engagement like, social networks to share this information in completely new ways. One of the questions you'd have to ask is, do you have technology in your organization that can recommend experts on a topic who you don't know, bring them to you, allow you to get them into a community? Because, the future, the smarter workforce, is less about structural transaction data that sits in a system like a CRM system. It's about the sharing of information and knowledge in new ways through systems of engagement. And this stems from finding talent. How do you go out and find people to hire, enabling your workforce? How do you share information and expertise? And how do you actually manage performance? So that term smarter workforce is meant to capture this thought of how are systems of engagement in new technologies like social technologies transforming the way that you enable and find and manage your organization to be much more effective and productive.
we have time for one last question, which one person in the audience actually gave us. I think you partially answered it already, but maybe you'd like to expound on it. How to avoid internal social networks becoming a waste of time for employees? Something that is often said about Facebook.
Yep.
You know, it's a complete time waster.
Well, I think it's, I did address it, but I'll use the word purposeful. If you're not purposeful, in our experience working with clients around the specific business problem you're trying to solve and the process you're trying to transform and what the levers are you can pull to transform it, you will waste your time. I think the second point is you have to think through the requirements of the business. If you require some degree of control, security, compliance, you're going to be very limited in terms of what you can actually do through the social technology. Because once you get out of the realm of marketing to a client to actually running your business process, these are the kinds of things that get in your way. How do I manage compliance? How do I make sure I know who's sharing what with whom? How do I make sure I know who's in the network? So it's thinking through those two items around the purposeful application, picking the right business process, and of course, thinking through the requirements that you have to be able to support will help you avoid a waste of time, which, again, I think there are many clients in the world who haven't seen the benefit because they haven't thought through those two things.
Unfortunately, our time's up, but if you are interested in this subject, I suggest, although I would hate to lose you here in this room, the next bar camp, which is sponsored by IBM, will actually be about smarter marketing. How do companies leverage analytics and insights to shape marketing strategies and maximize ROE for marketing campaigns? So possibly, if you want to continue the discussion there, that's the place to be. Matt, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you.
Yes.
My pleasure.